Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday build. This is episode 1.3, and today we're going to go over a deep dive of custom CSS, a practical exercise in Amazon Web Service and Bootswatch. Today we're going to be featuring the escape room Macassey that I built last week, the Document Learning Center, She Codes, AWS, and Bootswatch. All the things, so many things. I still have this Batman from last week because he looks so cute there, so I decided to keep him. So my name is Brittany Hernandez. My friend Emily calls me B, as in the B emoji, so you're welcome to call me B as well, or you can call me Peanut Brittle, as I went over in last week's episode. That's what my combination of what my uncle's nickname is for me and my dad's nickname for me. I'm from San Diego, California, but I live in London. I am a document enthusiast, now Gavel. They've just announced today that they've changed their name and their logo. So now Documate is Gavel. And a little bit about me, I'm a veteran. I served on active duty in the United States Coast Guard for 4 years in order to earn the GI Bill and serve the country. So I served in Alaska and Puerto Rico and got to drive boats and carry a gun and do all the things. It was super cool. I'm also a lawyer. I practiced intellectual property and entertainment law for a little while. I'm licensed in California. I have a master's degree in international film business from the University of Exeter and the London Film School. I was the business development and the partner engagement executive for a company out of Scotland called Vala. I'm also a professional builder, which means I use a mix or a hybrid of no-code and low-code development tools and techniques, as well as intersect those things together. And I was formerly a professional automation specialist and pro documenter, now Gavel, Lisa, you could say, with Gig Law. I'm also the global ambassador to law schools for Documate, now Gavel, and the program director and senior instructor for the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship Program, which just started today, by the way, about an hour ago. And I just did the first live session with them, and it was awesome. And I have such an amazing group, so I'm super excited. So I'm also the creator and host of the Lighten Talks for Legal Innovators in partnership with Gavel. And I'm also the host of this and creator of this particular series called the Wednesday Build, where I go over how I create different things using no code and low code techniques together. I'm also the creator of the first free interactive and digital magazine used and built on Document called Code Word Hex, which you're welcome to check out. And I'm the founder, course creator, and senior instructor for Commam Academy, which is my lovely academy that has the first ever Documenter certification course, and more on software, Airtable, and all the other things. So welcome to check those out if you'd like. So last week we talked about this idea of finding your pineapple, wrapping it in magic, and engaging the 4 quadrants. So when we talk about that framework, we talked about finding something that that's in your genius zone, within your Venn diagram of success, and within your 5 people, or the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So engaging all those different elements. And then when we talked about wrapping it in magic, we talked about doing that and injecting personality into your build through things like color, font, and all these different impressions, these visual and emotional impressions that people get when they encounter something that you've built. So we're going to really focus and hone in on this idea of specifically around color. CSS can be lots of different things, but specifically we're going to focus on changing sort of like the background color and the font and things like that. And we're going to go over different ways to do that. But just remember that your pineapple comes from the simple truth that no one else has ever lived nor will ever live your private moments. And so you have something very unique to offer the world. So you can bring that to the world, but wrap it in this really beautiful element of color, font, style, personality, and you can inject those into the things that you make. And it really adds that really fun element to what you're building. So we all know the phrase that there's more than one way to and I don't even want to repeat it, but I think you get the idea. So there's more than one way to do something. There's more than one way to, in this case, add custom CSS. I'm going to show you from a very practical perspective how to do that with Amazon Web Service and Bootswatch, but you can do this much easier ways. And so we're going to go over the easy way, the kind of easy way, and the but why though way, which is actually the AWS and Bootswatch way. And then when we get to that point, we can talk about questions. So let's go over the 3 different ways: the easy, the kind of hard, or so the kind of easy, and the but why though, which each actually have some sub elements. So let's go over first the easy way. So the easy way is to go the first easy way is to go with the default. So when you're building with Document Now Gavel, there's this idea of like sort of default rules or default CSS, and that's kind of anywhere in development generally. So when you create something with VS Code, for example, so if we go to VS Code and we create a new file, let's give it a name, let's call it index.html, and we're going to save that on the desktop, let's say, and create that file. So now what's going to happen is, so this is like, so let's focus just talking specifically about the like kind of traditional coding development style. So when we open this file now on our computer, it opens in our browser as a blank page. And what's going to happen is I'm going to just put an exclamation point and press enter, and it's going to give me this type, like this, all this header information that I need, like the document type, the language, the head, which we can change this part here, this title relates to what this is called up here. So for example, we can say CSS deep dive or something. And this is just to show you something quickly, which is to say that if I just say, for like anything, so if I just say hello world, for example, and I save that and I come over here and I refresh, you can see something has happened. So there's something that translated from what I did in here to something that happened over there. But we can also notice that this particular page has some style already. We can notice that these words are in a black color, and they have a font that looks probably similar to something like Times New Roman. So if we inspected this, maybe we would find that that was the case, and we could find that in the styles. So if you look over here, we have some display, the margin, we have different things like that. So if we wanted to change the default, we can do that using something called CSS. So CSS is generally done in the head. So you do something like this, you say style, and then you can give it, so right now we don't have this wrapped in anything, which is kind of not correct, but let's just say we wrap it in H1, which is just a header one. So now when we come over here, it's going to be bigger, but we still notice that there's some styling here, right? It's still black and there's still a white background and there's still some type of font. So if we want to change that, let's say we want the style of this to be like a different color, like a different background or centered or whatever you want, you do that here in style. So let's say we want to have anything that's an H1, we want it to be where the color is blue. So now when we refresh it, the color is blue. The color referring to the color of whatever's in between H1's brackets. So now we have this idea that we have the default rule and we've changed it now. We've told the computer, we're having a conversation with the computer where we're saying, hey, can you please style anything that is in an H1 So if we had multiple H1s, which you're only really supposed to have one on a page, but let's say for the sake of argument that there was something else in an H1 in a different section of this. Anything that's an H1, can you please make that blue? Make the color of it blue. So anyway, that's just to say, this is how you would traditionally do coding for changing the CSS. Now, if we kind of relate that over to something like no code, where we want to create something quickly and we don't want to have to code this from scratch, we want to be able to launch something very fast, you can still launch something quickly and you'll have default CSS inside. So let's use this example of a new workflow. So let's create a new workflow. This is within Document or the Gavel platform. So if we say plus new workflow, and let's give it a name. So I'm going to say the Wednesday build CSS deep dive. Okay, and let's say create. So it's going to take us automatically over to the editor. And when we look at the editor, what we can see is, let's say we say hello world, and we save that and we run it. What do we notice? We notice that there's defaults here. We notice that the default CSS is that there's a header at the top. There's a logo. There's a dashboard thing that allows you to, a button that allows you to go back to your dashboard. There's a drop down that allows you to go back to your workflows that you've taken, your account. You can sign out from there. This is all a matter of how this page was set up, because if you notice when we did this from the beginning, it was a completely blank page and we had to manually code whatever we wanted. However, here with Document Now Gavel is you have default CSS as well. This font is different from this font, isn't it? So when we think about that, we also have a divider under here that wasn't there before. We also have a button with some default CSS, because normally, let's say we wanted to make a button over here, we'd have to do quite a lot. So like if we wanted to create a button, we'd create a button, and then we'd have the button say something like learn more or whatever you want it to say. And then you'd have to come up here and you'd say button, I want the buttons to be some color or whatever. And you'd have to have the margin and the padding, and you'd have to have sort of the shadow and all these different things. So in order to create a button and then style that button, you would need to go through these several steps. But in our case, we have a situation where with no code, you're able to just quickly create something. So now I actually have a link that I can grab and give to somebody like this. So in this case, this is a really, really quick way to do something, and it has default CSS, so you don't have to code this from scratch. And you have a share link that you can share right away. Now, if you wanted this default CSS to be different than it is right now, there's, like I said, an easy way, a kind of easy way, and a but why though way, where you're just like, but why does it have to be this many steps and so complicated? So let's talk about first the easy way. The easy way, number one, is to just leave it as it is. It's already been coded for you. There's already CSS in here. If you wanted to add a new question type, so let's say we say add question, then I generally do lots and lots of instruction blocks just because I like to code within here and to do a lot of stuff just with the editor itself. But there's lots of things you can do, like output documents. You can make some really, really powerful and also complex and sophisticated applications that incorporate documents and all sorts of stuff with this tool. In our case, we're just going to create a kickout page for the purposes of this build. So a kickout page makes it to where instead of seeing continue at the bottom, there's just nothing. This is just a static page. So if we wanted to make a static page kind of like this one, we would use a kickout page. So I'm just going to say this is a kickout page, for example. And let's make that capitalized so it looks super proper. So now you can see that the continue button has gone away. And if we want this to be, and you can see, like I said, that this has a particular font. If you wanted to know which font it is, you can see that it's Source Sans Pro if you use something like What Font, or there's another one called CSS Peeper, which I'm actually going to just install really quick because I mentioned it before and in a different video, and I didn't have it on here. So you can just add this to Chrome and just add this extension. CSS Peeper is pretty cool. I actually got this tip from someone on LinkedIn. So thank you. Shout out to, I can't remember who it was actually. I'll have to check, but thank you. So CSS Peeper makes it to where when you click on it too, it gives you like the fonts that are used here. Headings are this, the body is this, CSS information and whatever else. It will also give you sort of colors like this. So we have these different colors that are incorporated on this page and so on. It also gives you the assets, which is cool. So you can see like this is a logo and you can export it and all that. So that's pretty cool because you can also just grab the hex code really quickly from this. So CSS Peeper is a really good one to check out as well. So when we go back to this idea of changing the default. So like I said, easiest way is to keep the default CSS the way that it is, because you don't have to do anything else and you can share this automatically with someone else. So that's 100% the fastest way to have CSS is to go with the default. The second fastest, or the second easy way to do this, to change the default, let's say you wanted it to be slightly different, is to go to the Document Help Center and go to this Add Custom CSS/styling to add your own style from the different ones that they have already created for you. So it says here that you can add your own styles, and there's some pre-built custom styles here. You can use any of these ones, or you can use some that are listed here, which is actually what we're going to go in last. So let's go here first. So Document has also built custom styles you can use. Check them out here. So if we go to these different ones, you can see the different options. I'm going to use the black one in a second just because it's most visually different. So it's easier to translate from here. But the options you have from this page that are already pre-built for you are clean CSS favorite, black and white, dark mode, light purple, 2 columns, no header, which I actually use this one quite a lot, and I'll show you in one of the builds that I did. If you don't need like the top section to show, no login, no login dark mode, and no email right to left. So if you want to change the default and you don't want to have to do a lot of coding or like lots of process, just find one of these that you like and use one that somebody already made. So let's say we go with this one, dark mode. Like I said, it's the most visually different, so it's easier for me to show you. So if we go back to our editor and we go to settings, and you see settings general, you just go to My Styles, change style with custom CSS, and you just drop the link into here. It's going to load, say save, and then we're going to refresh. And now the background is black. So that is going to be, like I said, the next easy way to change the default of what CSS is in here is by just going with a pre-built template. So the next way you can do this is through something that's also pre-built for you, which is this SheCode's kind of coding tools, 917 curated CSS gradients, and then just dropping that into our build. So when we do that, so right now we have this one, and we want to change that. So let's take that off for now to show you this next part, which is that if we go to this gradients.shecodes.io, And there's CSS generators, there's gradients, there's color palettes, there's like 1,000, yeah, 1,671 color palettes you can play with, and just so many different ways that you can play with all these different colors. And I really encourage you to add colors to your workflows and your apps that you build. They also have front end cheat sheets, which are really helpful. So there's a whole section on CSS cheat sheets that are really helpful to just kind of understand what's happening. So if we go back over to CSS gradients, which I think is just really fun to play with as well, and we pick one we like. So this green is kind of calling to me right now. So we would have this kind of green, beautiful sort of color. So what we can do is it's giving us the CSS code for this. So I'll show you what it would do if we just took this. So if we just take this and we put it here, what would happen? Let's see. Nothing, because we haven't told the computer that we're talking to it in code. It's reading this as if it's just text, because we have to indicate and give it a little bit of notice saying, hey, we're talking to you in code right now. So the way that we can do that is how we've done it over here. So there's multiple ways that you can do this, but what I'll say is you can say, in this case, we would say body background color. What was the CSS we had for it? Like this? Yeah. So let's see what happens when we run this, when we refresh this. So now we have this. Obviously, you would have to style this better. Like this isn't 100% perfect, but let's say we only wanted it to apply to H1 or something. Let's see what that looks like. So then it's only going here. So the idea here is that you have this kind of showing you that you can take this same convention that is used in traditional coding and apply it here. So like we said, if you just copied and pasted it here like this from the CSS we got, like the code we got from here, it wouldn't do anything because it's not sure what we're like saying. It's not reading it as code. If we tried to do it like this, then it's looking like this as well. So what we can do instead is actually we're going to make it to where we have this inside of the like body element here. So if you look at body, let's show you what that will look like. So if we say we're going to do a little alligator guy like this and say body, and then we're going to have style equals, and then you're going to have quotes, and then you're going to have this background like this, pull that into here, and then we're going to close that out and say body. And then we don't actually have to have anything in here, but we could if we wanted to. So let's say hello world. And now we have a green background where this says hello world. This is a kickout page. So that is one way where you can quickly and easily translate this idea of styling into here using just a tiny line of code. So what I was going to say here is that you can style something properly using CSS like this. You can also style it directly using HTML if you use this convention of body style equals, and then have this quotes, and then you have background, and then we just literally copied and pasted this from sheet codes in order to get that color. And then we can have, even if you put this outside of this, for example, here, it will still work because it's not relating to anything specific inside of it. It's just talking about the body of the page, not necessarily what's the word here. So when we do it that way, that's also pretty fast. Like all we really had to do was find a color that we liked from the CSS gradients, for example, and copy and paste that into this tiny bit of code. So if we pull this out into this section here, we can see that we're saying to the computer, this is the body of the page. And I'd like you to style it with a background of a linear gradient where from the top, it goes this hex code color, 0%, oops, and this hex code color, 100%. And then stop doing that. That's it. So when I think of when people encounter things like this, I think because it looks weird and foreign, that people get intimidated. But I really don't feel that you need to be intimidated by code or be afraid to use it, or like, oh, I'm using a no code tool, I don't want to use any code. You're not going to break anything if you just try it. So just feel free to try, feel free to explore and experiment with different types of hybrid code and no code elements together. So this is an example of where you would do, where this is also quite an easy way, because you didn't actually need all of this. I'm just using this as to show you. But one of the things I wanted to point out here was something that I talk about from my code word hex that I kind of went into a more deep dive into, was when we look at this from this perspective, if we really break this down and we look at it from element to element, you just look and follow what it's saying. So we're saying this, the doc type is HTML and it goes from here to here. Encapsulated in that is this section. Then we're saying that the language is going to be English. And then let's look at this next part. Then we have a head. So this is the section of the head. So we're focusing here and here, because that's always going to show you the beginning and the end. This little tick / is showing you where the end is. So we have the beginning and we have the end. And then we have things inside of that are their own sections, including the head and the body. So when we think about the head, that's giving a lot of like metadata, kind of like, so this is like the time zone, I think, and then sort of different things that I don't know all of these because it doesn't matter to what I'm doing necessarily. But you have the title here, and then here's our CSS that we put in, the style, which refers to things that happen inside of the body and styles them. So in the body, so if you notice here too, all of this stuff is actually being taken care of by Document or Gavel. So when we think about that, we can think about that in terms of we can do kind of whatever we want in the body then. It means that we can code or add in, and we don't have to, like I said, you can do lots and lots of things with Gavel outside of coding. I just personally like to do it because I think it's a really great base editor. And I still use VS Code for different things, more like to learn how to do it properly and traditionally, and to understand the elements and how the language is of communicating with a computer. But when it comes to when I'm actually building something, I use Gavel. So we talked about how this is the body, and the body has default settings that we can change using a tiny bit of code or using templates or using the defaults or whatever. So this convention is really handy. It's just, as I said, body style equals quotes, then just drop in whatever you copied here into the middle of the quotes and then close it off here and end the body. And then that's it. So if you like the way that that looks and you don't mind that there's a bar at the top, you can keep it like this and it will show up on all of your pages. So if we said instead that we had, instead of a kickout page, we had a question type. Let's say we have this is a question, and then we gave it a variable. Let's say question 1 or whatever you like. And we have another one that is for file uploads. Let's say file upload. and then we say upload. It doesn't, this is just an example, so it doesn't have to be perfect or anything. It's just to show you what it looks like when you save it and run it. So now you can see what it would look like if you actually added like text here. And if you wanted to kind of get even deeper into this, you could change the font family and the font color and things like that. So let's say we change the color to white. So that would be referring to the color of the text. So now the font colors are all white. So it's really fast. Like you can do this pretty quickly because of the fact that we're using no code. So, I mean, whether you like this aesthetically or not isn't really the point, but let's give it a sidebar like label as well. Let's say just like section 1. And then let's run that. So now we have this push towards the middle, and you have section 1, hello world. This is a question, file upload, and people can actually like go through this as a real workflow. There's nothing that has really changed from here except that we changed the colors of the fonts that we had. So now we have something that people can interact with, and they can browse their files, and they can cancel it and select a file and so on, and they can drag it and drop. And then they can move through this with the color staying the same. They can edit their answers. I would change this because obviously this is hard to read, but all the way through, they can complete this with you having only changed things using this small piece of code. So you can also change the font family, which, let's see, let's just pick one. So if you go to CSS font families and pick whichever you like, I wanted to see one that's like kind of a bit different. Let's see what this one is and see what that looks like. So this one has kind of like a fun, oops. This one has kind of like a fun old worldy kind of thing. And if you notice that these ones don't change as much automatically, partially because it's not within here, but I think also I might still have to change it anyway, but yeah. So for whatever reason that I haven't discovered yet, and somebody could tell me if they know, this doesn't work automatically. Like the changing the default, you have to kind of go like, you'd have to say like H1 style equals, and then give it its own font family and color stuff. So if anyone knows this trick yet or whatever, just tell me. That would be awesome. I haven't figured that one out yet. So let's do color white, and then this particular one. So now when we run it, this says hello world in the font, and look, you can even see the drag and drop files here is in that font, and also here, and also here, and also here, and also here, which is cool, and kind of fun and old worldy. And here, and obviously here, as I said, you'd have to figure out how you just change this the same way, give it the header, and put the text in between and so on. So anyway, this is kind of just a cool way to go through and quickly create stuff and change using just a tiny bit of code. And you don't have to, but you can. I like it. I think it looks cool. I think it's kind of neat and different to add just drag and dropping something from here, and also changing the default colors and font families. So the next part would be so this is kind of like the so we had the easy, which was do nothing and just use the default. The second one, easy, was to use your pre-built templates, which was here. Now we went into this sort of easy-ish or kind of easy section, which was a tiny bit of code. And then another kind of easy-ish way of doing it is to do a hybrid, which is actually my preferred method. So I like to combine the easy method. Well, kind of, you could say we're layering 3, which is the default plus a template plus changing the default of the template that we use with a tiny bit of code. So the reason why I say this is because of the way that I built Escape Room Maxi. So Escape Room Maxi is my build from the code word hex. So this is code word hex, and it's my digital magazine where it's free every Tuesday. I come up with a new build and kind of go in a deep dive of how I created that. And this past week, I did one called If You Find This Room, It Is For You. And I have it to where I utilize these different elements of different font styles and families, different background, using a hybrid of code and no code. And the reason why I wanted to point this one out is because you can see that I've changed the background color and I have no header. And the way that I did that was I combined one of the easy methods with this tiny bit kind of easy-ish. So I took the one that says no header and I copied and I pasted that into my the back of my build. So here's the CSS deep dive one that we were talking about. So currently it looks like this, but if I wanted this to go away, and by the way, you can see that these ones changed as well from the font, which just makes me smile. I just like that. And I just went to settings, general, changed my style with custom CSS and dropped that in there, saved that and ran it. And now you have it to where there's no header at the top, which is super cool. I think that looks awesome. And I think it looks better than it did with the, it looks better without the header at the top. So that is how you can quickly and easily, in just like 2 seconds, change the CSS defaults in your builds using these different techniques. Now we're gonna move into the kind of like the but why though. But the reason that we have that version of the but why though is because maybe you want the button colors to be different. Maybe you want to have a different responsiveness, or maybe you want to have all these things in a very set way. So the way that you can do that without having to manually code everything individually is to use a Bootswatch template where they've done all of that for you. You just have to figure out how to get this file that they give you into a URL that you can have put into Document or Gabble. So if we go back to this add custom CSS styling help article, I wanted to change all of the things one time about a year ago or so, a little less than a year ago. And I was reading this article and I was reading it and it says, add your own styles. You can match the look and feel of your own website by adding custom styling to your own CSS to change the styles, colors, fonts, and button styles in your own workflow. You can do this by adding the link to your CSS style in the settings section like below. Now, if you are new to the world of like tech and legal tech and coding and like no code and all the things, like I was May of last year, April, May timeframe, I did not know how to make a link out of a CSS file or whatever. So I had to like learn this from lots of research and watching lots of YouTube videos and trying to figure it out. And it was not easy because it says pre-built custom styles. You can use any of the design themes listed here. And this is no, like, I'm not trying to like make a mockery of like this, but it just was like so hard. So what I was going to say is when you go to listed here, it takes you to Bootswatch, which is what we're going to go over next. And so the first thing I'll say before we get into this section is you don't have to do it this way. You can do it the ways that I've just shown you before this, which is you can go the easy route, go the default route, use the pre-built templates, use that one tiny line of code where you can add font families and colors and backgrounds and all the things. Or if you'd like to get really fancy, then you can go this but why though kind of way. I have done this before, and most of it was just kind of me getting frustrated that I couldn't figure it out. And I was like a dog with a bone and I just couldn't let it go. So what I was trying to figure out was, how did they get a CSS file to turn into a link, which is not obvious on the first try. So the reason why I wanted to know that is because when you go to Bootswatch, you get preview or download. You get those two options. You can either preview something and you can look at all this stuff and I don't see like a link anywhere. And maybe if somebody else knows this and I don't know this, you can tell me, but I didn't see anything here. It's just an overview of, of what it would look like if you had these different elements in your builds. So that's pretty cool because it's showing you this is what the buttons would look like and blah, blah, blah. And you can actually grab the specific code for like those things by copying it like that. But that's like quite manual. So what you could do instead is download the whole template like this, say Bootstrap. It can be any of these, but let's use this Bootstrap. I'm going to try to pick a different one that's like more like maybe different. I don't know. I like this one. This one's cute. This is actually the one that I used previously when I was trying to figure it out. So if we want to use this one, for example, what we would do is we would click on here and say download. You can either just do it straight and it will give you the .min.css one. And it's going to just download in your folder. Now, I will show you the process that I went through before I knew how to do this. I said, what do I do with this that I just downloaded? I have no idea. So I tried like, what if I try drag and dropping this into here? I was like, that doesn't make sense, but I'm going to try it. Nothing happened and it just gave me this weird thing. And I was like, no, I don't know what to do. So I did a lot of soul searching and a lot of YouTubing and a lot of figuring and a lot of reading. And I also did a lot of noticing. So I went back to this page and I was like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do with this file that downloaded? I have no idea what I'm doing. So when I was like, how do I get this into a link? I was looking at these links and saying, okay, well, what does it actually say? Like, what does it say here? It says, okay, I have an HTTPS and then the /, so that's normal. Then there's something about document styles. Okay, so that's specific to document. Then there's something like S3 US West 1. Not sure what that means. And then it says Amazon AWS.com/clean.css.css. And I said, Amazon? What the heck does Amazon have to do with anything here? Amazon is just where I order things that I want when I don't want to go out to the grocery store or go to the regular mall or whatever. But what's it doing here in this link that has to do with custom CSS for no code platform document, or now Gavel? And then I saw it again. I saw here it is, and here it is, and here it is again and again and again and again and again. It also says this S3 over and over again and again and again and again and again. So if we look at this pattern, and what I did was I just Googled Amazon AWS, what the heck? And what came up for me was some stuff around AWS. So AWS is Amazon Web Service, and it makes it to where you can do lots of different things that I never knew you could do. But if you create an account, and if you create a root user account, so mine is going to be here. Let me just see, clear your cookies. Let me just see if I can try this really quick. Okay. So if we sign into, so you can create an account really easily on AWS. You can just go here and then say, I think you just kind of find like products or solutions or something. But you could just say, let's just see. Well, I'll find it for you wherever the sign up is for this, or just like my account, create account or whatever, sign into the console, just whatever button it is that says sign up here. Sign up to AWS, and what you're going to need is S3. So when you look at the services, you're going to be able to, you could search for S3, for example, and I'm going to go ahead and start it. And you want to go here. This is scalable storage in the cloud. So if we go to S3, then it's going to give you this particular dashboard and view. So what we're going to do is we need to create a bucket for the CSS to live in forevermore. And we can use it in lots of different ways. So what we're going to do is go through this process step by step and see at what points things break and work, because there's a multi-step process here. So what we're going to do first is create a bucket. So we can give this a bucket name, and let's do Minty, because I think it's called Minty. Well, can't find it now, but yeah, it's called Minty Fresh Feel. So let's do Minty CSS. And then we can give it a region. So in my case, I'm actually in London. So I'm going to do EU West 2. Then we're going to go to object ownership. So in this case, we're going to do ACL is disabled, which is the recommended one. For now, the appropriate step is to actually uncheck this. But I kind of wanted to show you like step by step how this works. So what things you need to edit so you can see like what you've done wrong. So we'll need to in the future uncheck this box. But for now, let's keep it on. Bucket versioning, you can keep that as it is. Tags, keep it as it is. Default encryption, keep that as it is. And then you can just leave all that. So let's say create bucket. So we've created a bucket now that says Minty CSS. So if we go here, so it says bucket and objects not public. We click on this Minty CSS and we go over to this. There's nothing in here. So we need to put it in here. This is just an empty nothing so far because we haven't put the CSS inside of it. So what we need to do is upload the file. So we can grab the file that we have here and drop it in here. And so we see it here. And then we can look. So this is going to be important later. It says this bucket has the bucket owner enforced settings applied for object ownership. Use bucket policies to control access. This idea of a bucket policy will come into play last. Then we can look at the properties. We can look at this. It's pretty standard. We don't need to specify anything or any of this other stuff. Don't worry about that. Just say upload. Upload succeeded. View details below. So when we click on this, we have a link now. So we could actually just grab that. It's not going to work, but I'll show you that it doesn't work. So if you try to do it just from here, and you say, and you put it in here, we have a link now. Congratulations to us. And it looks kind of like the one that that document had, right? It's not going to change from what we had before. First of all, let's take off this part for a sec. So we can take that off now, and we have our friend link. So this is back to the default, and nothing has changed, unfortunately for us. The reason is that it's not public. So we go back to close this, and we go back to our buckets. We see that buckets and objects are not public. So we need to change that. So if we go to permissions and we see block all public access is on, we need to edit that. This is what I was saying earlier. So we're going to uncheck this and save our changes. Say confirm. And now objects can be public. So if we go back to our buckets, we can see that this now says objects can be public. And if we go back here now and we want to click on this and get our link, we try it again. Let's see, we try it again. We say save, we say run. Nothing has changed again. The reason for that is the objects can be public, but they currently are not public because you haven't made them so in your bucket policy. So the last thing that we need to do in order to make that work for us is to change the bucket policy. The bucket policy to do this was so hard to find. I can't even find it again to show you where it is. So I actually have to just show you from a different one that I already have. So if we go to this one that I already have, this is what the bucket policy looks like. So if we copy this, it's not even that long of a thing, but it's such a pain. So if we go back to bucket and we go to our one that we're working on, which is this Minty CSS one, and we go to permissions and we go to the bucket policy, we want to say edit. And then we want to drop in the one that we just copied from the other one. And then there's one more thing we need to change, which is this part right here, which is relating to the other one that I pulled it from. And we need to put in this one. So you can say from here, you could actually, like, it's referring specifically to like this whole thing, like to here. So you could copy here and then paste it in here, which we can do now. But if you wanted to, if you notice, it's ARN and then AWS, then S3, then 3 of these, and then Minty CSS. So you could take the whole thing, or you can just take this part and make sure you keep these 2 pieces. So if we go here to the name of the resource and we put in what we have here and we save that, then successfully edited the bucket policy. And now what does it say? Publicly accessible. Ah, very interesting. So if we go back, now it matches all these other things and says public. So we say Minty CSS and we click on our link and we grab our link here and we go back over here. It's going to be the same, but let's just link it anyway. And we save it now and we run it. Ah, now it has worked. So now we have all these cool fun colors that look so pretty. I think they're so cute. And you have different font styles and you have different button shapes and you have these different colors and it just looks cool. I just feel like that's awesome. So you see how it's like a little bit more faded and like a little bit more muted, and I don't know, it's fun. So you can see that the font even here on the buttons is different. So that's how we were able to go step by step by step through the process of taking the file that we received from Bootswatch that was downloaded here and step by step going through Amazon Web Services process to see why each step didn't work along the way, I think is the best way to learn how to do this, because otherwise you're not going to know why you didn't do it right. So as I said, the process can be easy, kind of easy, or but why though? The last and hardest way to do all of this would be the traditional method of coding it all from scratch. So I'm not going to do that, but what I will do is show you what happened, like what that would look like if you tried to do that. And the best way to show you that is by clicking on one of these. So if we just click on the one for, let's say, no header, this is what this file would look like. So this is how much stuff is going on in the background of one of these links. It's so much stuff. That is so many things that it's the but why though max. Why would you do this? And this is what designers do. Like this is what people on design teams do all day, is they design the buttons and the colors and the responsiveness and the shadows and the hovers and all the things, what your cursor looks like when you hover over something and it's like, whoa. So that is why I generally like to understand what this is saying. I like to know what this means and what it's referring to. Things like roots and inherits and all those things, and font families and how to write it. But I like to work within a no code tool like Gavel, or now currently Documate, but changed now to Gavel, is that I don't have to do that. Like I don't have to code that from scratch, but I can get the results I want by and have all these beautiful themes that are already created for me by just knowing how to connect the file to AWS to create a bucket that's public so that I can use that in my build. Now you can use that same link in all of your builds. You can use the same link in any build that you want. And you can layer things on by, like I said, having this link here. And then let's say you wanted to change the font to something or the background color to something else, you can do that here. So I think I'm going to end this particular portion there, and let's just start wrapping up. So I hope that was useful. Let me get back here and go to Canva. By the way, I love Canva. Canva's amazing. And yeah, so we went over that there's one way to add custom CSS, and those are just a couple of ways you can do that. Remember that your pineapple comes from the simple truth that no one else has ever lived nor will ever live your private moments. And you should wrap those beautiful pineapples in magic, such as color, font, styles, personality, and so on. Remember that there's easy ways, kind of easy ways, but why those super hard ways that have lots and lots of steps. But you can layer things on top of each other, change the default settings, and make things exactly the way that you want them to be. So if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please do feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you my contact information towards the end. I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, answer emails, chat, and so on. As far as announcements, I do the Wednesday build, which is this series every Wednesday. And then I also have a Code Word Hex interactive magazine that I showed you, where you can find the build for Escape Room McAfee and play with that and actually use that tool if you'd like. That's out every Tuesday. I also have courses on Software and Airtable with more to come. Also with Documate, now Gavel, I have certification courses and fellowship. So we just, like I said, started the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, which just launched today, where I had a live class with the students right before this particular one. So do let people know about that, because there's rolling admission until March 28th. So people can join us and catch up as we have the live sessions recorded. And even if they can't make it to the 9 a.m. Wednesdays sessions, they can watch the replay. Also, feel free to join the Chromium community, which you can do by just being a part of the Wednesday build or Code Word Hacks or any of my courses on Chromium Academy's website. You get automatically added to Chromium Global, which is full of really cool, interesting people who love tech and no code and low code development and all the things. Also, join the Documate community Slack group. It's super active and people are really supportive, and the team really, really helps you out. So thank you so much for your time and attention. We're going to hang out again next Wednesday, the 25th of January at 10 a.m. Pacific time. The topic for next week will be Where Colors Taste Like Lemon Drops. This is about synesthesia, simile, and analogy in no-code, low-code development, which I'm really excited about. I just think this topic is going to be super fun. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Brittany Hernandez. You can email me at brittany@chromium.pro. Also, if you have any inquiries related to Documate's law school program, you can email me at brittany@documate.org. And I also do speaking engagements for law schools and different conferences. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any of those inquiries as well. So thank you so much again for your time. It was so nice to hang out with you all. And I hope this was useful, and I'll see you next time.